It's a common sight and sound in many Canadian kitchens, but every time a gas burner is sparked, harmful gases are emitted.
The levels right now in our lab are 24 parts per billion, which is well below the 90 parts per billion that's suggested by Health Canada. But if we had a gas stove, for example, in the lab, those levels would go up and quite possibly exceed those limits.
Cahan says prolonged exposure to gas stoves can lead to asthma and other respiratory and cardiovascular diseases. In the US, a commissioner with the Consumer Watchdog sounded the alarm last month, even suggesting a ban on gas stoves. But the Consumer Product Safety Chair clarified that is unlikely. The concerns come after a recent US study linked the emissions from gas stoves to asthma.
A study that suggested that almost 13% of all childhood asthma cases can be attributed to gas stove use, which is a lot.
Cahan says between 2017 and 2018, she and her colleagues took pollution readings inside a household after cooking with a gas stove. They were surprised by both how high the levels of nitrogen oxides were and how long they lasted. Cahan says nitrogen dioxide produced when the gas is burned is a concerning pollutant.
It can be associated with making respiratory illnesses like asthma worse, and even, especially for children, it can actually cause asthma if there's prolonged exposure.
Cahan says multiple studies show levels of nitrogen dioxide emitted by gas stoves exceed, in some cases even 100 times higher, above what Health Canada guidelines. This prompted her to get rid of her own gas stove and switch to an electric induction cooktop. She says others should do the same.
When you actually see the pollution in your home, because we had instruments that were making these measurements every 10 seconds. So we could see the levels, just being nice and flat to suddenly really high and staying high. And when you see that, it's almost like seeing the air change color, right? You're like, oh, that's really gross.
Sask Energy says there are nearly 20,000 gas stoves in the province right now. It says if you choose to use one, you should make sure you have a range hood that provides ventilation to avoid recirculating unhealthy air. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.